Loss aversion is ruining your Forex journey and meaning that you lose more money and make less profit throughout your trading career. Now, what actually is loss aversion? Well, loss aversion is essentially a cognitive bias that we have where a perceived loss is always going to hurt more than a perceived gain. Now, that obviously will make sense to everyone. Obviously, a loss will hurt and cause more emotion than a gain, but this ties in very nicely to Forex, and I'm going to be explaining today why loss aversion is ruining your Forex journey. Now, why should you listen to me in this? Well, I've recently just graduated from a university with a degree in psychology, and loss aversion and financial psychology is something we did massively in my degree. So I feel like I'm well qualified, I am qualified to talk on this topic, and hopefully you learn a little bit about, loss aversion and what it is and how I can help you improve it. So as I said, loss aversion is essentially where whenever you lose, it feels far worse than whenever you win. And so as humans, we don't like loss, obviously, in any circumstance, whether that's financial, health, family, whatever. But obviously purely talking about Forex, we're talking about money. And so a loss, no matter what the amount, is always going to hurt more or give you more emotion than a win, which is interesting because there are studies out there that show if someone loses £20, that is going to cause more emotion than if someone gains £20 or even £10. If they gain any sort of money, that is going to not cause as much emotion than losing money. So humans don't like loss, we don't like losing, and so we do something called loss aversion to try and avoid this. Now, this goes into many different scenarios. The first scenario I want to talk about was one that we're all familiar with, which is either holding beyond our SL, or where the whole common saying of we can hold to our SL but not to our TP. And the real working mechanisms behind why this happens is because of loss aversion. When it's going towards our SL and we're losing and we're losing and we're losing, loss aversion starts kicking in. And the only reason that we don't close and accept the loss is because we don't like to lose. So we leave it with belief that it might come to our TP, because loss aversion doesn't want us to lose money. So we keep holding and we keep holding, sometimes past our SL. And this is why people can hold to their SL but not to their TP, because when we're losing money, it's only realized when we close out the trade. And so that loss aversion is preventing us from wanting to close the position, because we don't want to have that feeling of loss. We know we don't like it. If you're someone that suffers with loss aversion and struggles with loss aversion, like a lot of us do, you will find that you hold to your SL a lot more than you can, hold to your TP. And it is because of loss aversion. Now, another, sort of area where this applies is when we actually take a loss, the emotions we feel. It hurts and it annoys us because that is loss aversion kicking in. It's because we've taken this loss, we've lost money. The easiest way to sort of deal with this is by, essentially perceiving it differently. Instead of seeing that you lost money, you want to try and see and view it as you've gained a lesson. And now this will, be very difficult at the start, but once you get into the habit of, instead of taking losses and going, I lost money, if you take the loss but view it as you gain something, you'll find that loss aversion happens far less, and you'll be much, much better at being able to, close position early if your plan sees fit, or taking the SL but not really reacting in a negative way like you normally would. And this doesn't just apply to it going to your SL, it also applies when you're, in profit. A lot of people will close, before take profit, purely because they don't like the idea of price falling back, say you're in a buy, falling back and going to your SL and, you know, making you lose money. It's the same thing. So loss aversion is the reason that you hold all the way to your SL, but it is also the reason why you can't always hold to your TP. The loss aversion that occurs when you're in profit and the thoughts of it going back down to your SL means that you don't want to, you know, hold to full TP because there is that risk. So you take some now to make sure that you don't lose. Taking profits early will lead to lots of problems in your Forex trading, and letting, you know, it go all the way to your SL and further will also lead to lots of problems in your Forex trading. You need to understand this concept of loss aversion and why we have it. And it is very useful in some circumstances, but as traders, we really don't want to have it. And so how do you get rid of loss aversion and how do you improve it? I've already said one, which is change how you perceive the outcome. So if the outcome is something that's a loss, change its perspective. If you take an SL in trading, view it as you gained a lesson. So say I gained something, always use that word gained, because the more you say that when you lose, the less loss aversion will affect you, because ultimately we want to make it so that we have zero loss aversion. And for a lot of people that's going to be difficult to do, but the first steps you can take, as I said, is one, viewing losses as gains. Because as I said at the start, we always prefer to not lose, which is why loss aversion comes around in the first place. And it's not ideal for investing. It's literally probably the worst scenario where loss aversion will be at stake, because you don't want to hold to your TP and you don't want to, you don't want to close early, because that's realizing the losses, and loss aversion will, occur. But another way that I found that helped me with loss aversion is to view the losses in a realistic way. So when you lose, as I said at the start, you could lose any amount. It could be you could lose £1 and make £20, and you'll still feel worse about losing that £1. What you want to do is you want to try your best to convince yourself about the realistic risk that you're taking on each trade. Ultimately, £10, say on a £1,000 small account, £10 a trade or a loss isn't really that big of a deal. It's £10. So you have to tell yourself this. And over time, it's like, chipping away at a rock. The more you tell yourself that the loss doesn't really matter, the weaker the loss aversion becomes, because you become accustomed to that loss. And that's why you find that your loss aversion increases with the amount as it increases. So say you start with a 10K prop firm, and then you jump to 100K, you're going to really struggle, because your loss aversion is going to be through the roof, because you're not accustomed to the losses. So you have to try and build up that, gradual, realistic loss amount, so that loss aversion plays less of a factor. Now, let me know what you think about loss aversion. Does it affect you? I'm interested to know. It definitely did at the start of my trading, but hopefully this video helped you, and I will see you in the next one.